So now I'd like to turn to our featured modeler, Scott Thornton. This is the second time Scott's been kind enough to share with us information on his Proto Throttle and how it's actually used in operation this time. So Scott, thank you so much for coming again, and looking forward to your discussion.
Well, thanks, Jim. I've got two screens with my name on it because I've got one at my desktop and one on my mobile phone because I'm going to demo the throttle via my cell phone. So that's why if you see my name twice, you know what's going on. But I don't know who was here last time when I introduced the Proto Throttle, but I'm curious to know from this group. Looks like we got roughly 31 people that are participating tonight. How many people are diesel modelers and interested in control stand operation? I don't know if anybody wants to pipe in, but I'm opening it up for a little bit of dialogue in the beginning here.
Scott, I think I piped up last time you were on. I model diesel, but I don't have operations, but I am in a club where we have operations, and we have a number of your Proto Throttles in the club layout.
Okay, that's great. Well, the reason why I ask is because I didn't know if it was predominantly steam with this group or if there's a variety or how people like to operate and that sort of thing before I jumped in and talked about the Proto Throttle and how it performs and that sort of thing. So anybody else?
Well, at least one of us is transition era. That's 1948 to 1955. So yeah, I swing both ways.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the line out of Notting Hill about how horse and hound was, we're equally intrigued by both species, steam and diesel.
All right. Anybody else?
I currently run diesel at John Frankfurter here. Basically, I run mine off of engine driver on my cell phone.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thanks for the input. I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm just going to show you a couple slides, and then I'll switch over to my cell phone and I'll demo the throttle for you. So, let's see if I can. Here we go. Can everybody see this?
No.
We're seeing your desktop.
Yes, you see my desktop with the mess that it is.
Yep.
All right, let me get the graphic here. Okay, this guy was one of the inspirations for the development of the Proto Throttle. Now, this obviously is a diesel control stand, but just take a look at how grungy and nasty, and they even have a little bit over here that says couldn't even spell engineer and now I are one. So the Proto Throttle was developed out of a desire to control diesel locomotives as realistically as possible on our model railroads. I had seen a YouTube video of a fella that lived in Arizona, and he obviously was an engineer, and he had put together a Rube Goldberg type of control stand with an NCE wireless throttle. And it had a detented throttle handle, just like the prototype, detented meaning that each notch you could feel when you move the throttle handle. And that was terribly exciting because that's exactly the type of performance that I was looking for. And I had developed a relationship with Iowa Scaled Engineering. I don't know how many of you know of Iowa Scaled Engineering. They produce a variety of electronics for model railroaders, but they also have a company called Grain Belt Models that produces 3D printed pipes and grain bins, and they're very realistic, very, very nice models. So, but I developed a friendship with the two partners, and I pitched the idea to them, could you guys help me build a Rube Goldberg type control stand throttle like I saw in that YouTube video? Well, they agreed, but they agreed with a caveat. Yeah, we'll build 1 or 2 or maybe 3, maybe 1 for each of us, and that's it. Well, as we started to get into the development over the course of 6 months to a year, it became very apparent that we could put together a really viable product that we could offer to other diesel modelers. So that's how the Proto Throttle came to be. It took about 2.5 years of full development before we started to market it. We've marketed it now for roughly 3 years, and we've sold close to 700 or 800 of the units. So there's a lot of diesel modelers out there who are taking advantage of the Proto Throttle and utilizing it. So anyway, it was based on this, you know, a typical EMD control stand. So if you can see my little cursor here floating around, can you guys see this? Maybe not. My little arrow.
Yes, I see it.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, down here, you know, we have for those who aren't that familiar, now I might be preaching to the choir, and if I am, forgive me, but you know, this is the throttle handle right here. This is below it is what they call the reverser. That's your directional, you know, center, neutral, forward, backwards, reverse. This is the handle above it is a dynamic brake. We don't have a dynamic brake incorporated into the Proto Throttle because it really wasn't practical. And obviously there's other controls on a true control stand that we don't have. We have well, let me back up. The throttle and the reverser are both detented, so you can feel the notching as you move the handles. We have a spring-loaded horn handle that looks almost identical to what you see here. And then for the train brake, it's more like a true independent brake. It's not a train brake because you've got the train brake and the independent brake here. But on the Proto Throttle, it's only practical for model railroaders really to have I guess I'd call it an independent brake rather than a train brake. But it's still exciting to use and very realistic. In addition, we have a latched bell button like you see down here, this little brass bell. You know, those are punch buttons, so you can punch them to turn them on and pull them to turn them on, punch them to turn them off. And then we've got rotary light switches, and I'll show you on my personal Proto Throttle how we went from just a typical round knob, but we're also trying to develop some more oval knobs like you see on the prototype. So that's the basic configuration of the Proto Throttle.
And does this, quick question, does this sander actually work?
No, there's no sander, sorry. I apologize for this crude photo. I just pulled this off and I didn't realize it was low resolution, but this is how the Proto Throttle looks. And I'll show you my personal one when we get operating, but
Scott, I think up at the upper left, you can go that a little bit with the magnifying glasses on the upper left on the app. Why don't you just grow it a little bit?
gotcha. There we go. It's still pixelated, but yeah. But there you go. I mean, you can get a general idea, and I'll show you mine again once we get operating. So one thing we did with the final Proto Throttle is we have the faceplate machined out of aluminum and we anodize it in different colors. So that way it's got a real robust feel. It feels like a real control stand rather than a plastic throttle, that sort of thing. So, and I have one more thing to show you here. This, now for those of you who happen to be Loc Sound users and operate diesels, I'm going to talk once we get into the performance of the throttle, showing a little switcher on my branch line layout, that by compressing the speed curve, this is a screen from the Loc programmer that Loc Sound users can use to enter parameters into their decoders. By compressing the speed curve, which is this right here, this flat boxes across the screen, in effect, what you can do is you can have a maximum miles per hour that your diesel will operate at, and you can coordinate this with the notching in the Proto Throttle. So for example, on my SW1200 switcher, The notches 1 through 4 are controlled through the swing you see right here on the speed curve. But then after notch 4, the speed can never increase, but notches 5 through 8 are playable just with the prime mover sound. And I hope that makes sense. But what it does is it allows you to get, again, hyper realistic performance from your Proto Throttle, because as you're moving your engines from a start to whatever full speed you have maxed them out on this flat part of the curve, when you encounter a grade, you can notch up, but the speed isn't going to increase. So it's very realistic. Does that make sense? Or is it, or are people confused? Did I just confuse everybody?
No, it makes sense.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So basically what you're saying is that, you know, the speed stays the same, but you notch it up so you get the louder sound.
Right.
By the way, do the same. It's interesting. You do the same thing on a steam engine. When you start, if you zoom the throttle up to 128, you get a really loud percussion soundtracks. And then when you dial it down, it'll slow down. So it makes the sound like a heavy start sound. So it's the same exact thing. You're controlling the speed and the electronics, but using the higher sound settings. That makes sense.
Right. Okay, great. And then also for optimum performance with the Proto Throttle, with your momentums on the front and the back end. On the front end, you want to have a little bit of momentum. So when you notch up, the diesel doesn't, you know, jackrabbit start, but actually it smooth starts. But on the back end, in order to get the most realistic performance with the variable brake, you have to max out the momentum on the back end, so the deceleration. And you'll see that when we do the demo with my mobile phone, because that allows the brake to really come into play with the throttle. Now, this is completely different from standard throttles, you know, just your typical DCC throttle. With the Proto Throttle, because it is notched like the prototype, you always know where you're at in terms of controlling the locomotive. When you're dealing with a variable knob, it's very difficult to know where you're at in the sequence. So keep that in mind. So with that, I'm gonna, if you'll bear with me, I'm gonna switch over to my phone. So just hang in there with me. Okay. Okay. Mute my. Okay. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me. There was slight echoing when you first started, but it's now gone.
Yeah. I'm going to leave on that one. There we go. Am I still here?
Yep.
Yes, you
Okay.
are.
All right. So again, forgive me, my layout is under construction, so I'm going to turn up the lights here. Okay. So here is my Proto Throttle. Now, one thing I've done with mine is you know, a lot of typical EMD diesels have seafoam green interiors, and on my SW1200 that was the case. So I painted my throttle plate seafoam green, and then I beat it to heck and weathered it up, so give it a more realistic appearance. And you can see here I'm 3D printing, playing around with some of the knobs on the throttle. So that's why this oval one's down here next to the round one. So I'm going to fire this up, and hopefully you'll be able to see this screen. And you see that little Proto Throttle comes on, and then on the screen here, it shows the engine that's currently programmed into the throttle, the 250. It gives you the battery power. Some auxiliary buttons over here you can map different functions to. The 6 p.m., that's my layout pass clock. So what we'll do here is, you can see the diesel down the track there. I'm going to turn on the engine, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it fire up. Okay. See if I can put together a little. There we go. Okay, so we've got down the track here. This is our train, this little SW with the 2 cars. Now, what we can do is the throttle has, you can program in total independent control of your lights. So this is front, this is rear. And since the diesel cab is facing us, you know, it goes from dim to bright with ditch. So if I flip this on, I don't know if you can see that, it came on with the dim light, and then I switch it again, goes to bright, and then finally the bright with the ditch. And again, we've got the spring-loaded horn here. We've got the latched bell. I hope you can all hear that. And then here's our variable brake. It's disengaged.
Excuse me, are you using your, Scott, are you using?
What's
Scott, are
that?
you using your earbuds?
I'm not hearing anything.
Scott, are you using your earbuds?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, why don't you take the earbuds out? Because the earbuds actually use more like a bone mic. So they
Okay.
don't pick up extraneous sounds. It's probably better just to use the speakerphone, and then we have a better chance of hearing it.
Can you hear now? I'm sorry. Can you still hear me now?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can still hear you.
Okay, so I'll do it again. So we got the horn, you can hear that,
Yes.
and the bell. And then when, you know, you can program different sound functions into the brake and other functions, like there's an air let off when you use this, and you'll hear it more when I bring the train down the track. So now, since we're faced backwards, I'm going to throw the reverser into reverse, and then I'm going to notch up, and I'm going to notch up to about 5 or 6 just to get our train. I hope you can hear that. And then we're going to notch back. But every notch coordinates with the prime mover sound.
I'm not hearing anything.
Well, it's kind of hard. I apologize, but I'll try and get closer. Can you hear?
Barely.
I wish I had a better mic, guys. But now I just put it into idle. So since we have the deceleration up to max, it'll keep coasting until I hit the variable brake here. And then if we go back and we flip her into reverse and we remove the brake or release the brake. I'll try and get closer here, sorry. Then when we notch up,
Yeah, I'm hearing it now.
yeah. I wish I had a dual screen on there. So now, if I go into idle again, it's going to coast. And then we can apply the brake with some brake squeal. So Again, I'm sorry, guys. I apologize if you can't hear that too well. I don't have professional mics here, but that's the basic control of the throttle. Now, we've added some additional features for you hyper realistic operators. In the latest firmware, we've got a brake test, which you can hear once the brakes test starts, you get a gauge and it pumps up the air to 91 PSI, and you can hear the compressor going off in the engine.
Yes.
And then when it gets to 90, then we can release the brake and it'll come down approximately 20 PSI. So when I release this, it's going to go down and then it's going to start to pump back up again. Once I engage the brake. Once I release the brake, it'll pump back up. So this simulates, doing a brake test before a train moves.
That's neat. That really is neat.
Yeah. And we have over here again, we have an auxiliary button up here that you can program to different functions. Let's see. Hang on a second. Gonna let that go all the way up here. And it's random, so sometimes the PSI won't make it all the way to 90. Sometimes it'll go to 91 or 92. As soon as it gets up there, we'll shut it off. There we go. All right. Okay, and so we have this auxiliary button. It's up here that's latched as well. So you can assign functions to this button as well. A lot of low sound users use the drive hold up here. That's about it. So if you guys have any questions, I'll just power this down. See if I can switch over here. Actually, let me turn off the engine. So I hope that was worth it, guys.
Scott, let me ask you a question. How long would it take me from the time I get one to be able to get my first diesel ready to operate?
Oh, it wouldn't take you long at all. Probably just getting used to the throttle and reading through the manual and getting things set up. It might take you an hour.
Okay.
Scott, Greg, I have a question.
Sure.
You say you're playing around with some different 3D printing for the grabs on some of the levers. If some of your customers were interested, is that something you could possibly offer as a service? If they wanted their throttle ends to be a certain way, they could send you a design, and for a certain fee, you could print them something that would screw on to the various posts that they want to change?
That's a good question. I'm not sure because we actually do offer a variety of handles for the throttles, different colors, brass.
You do. Okay. Yeah. Now I know we have different face plates, but I didn't know different handles were available. That's nice.
Right. Yeah. And the ones that you saw on my throttle, the oval ones and the reverser that has the flared sides, you see a lot of reverser keys that are like that. And I'm gonna 3D print those and offer those eventually, but it's like anything, just getting the time to get it completely done and getting it perfect. I want it perfect. So.
And for an extra fee, could someone order one beat up like yours?
Actually,
would you attack it with a knife for extra money?
Yeah, actually, I am going to offer that. That's one thing that
really, okay,
the three of us, yeah, we're gonna. I've done a number of weathered faceplates. We did several for Lionel Strang's fundraising. I don't know if many of you are familiar with Lionel Strang. Had stage 4 cancer. He's the proprietor of a Modeler's Life podcast, and for the last 2 years, we've donated several throttles with weathered faceplates to an auction to raise money for their cancer research. So that's got me started. So I've been doing weathered faceplates for others too. So we haven't really promoted it, but yeah, I'd like to start doing that to anyone who's interested.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Is there
an Alco version?
Say again?
Is there an Alco version?
No, there isn't, unfortunately. We had to choose something to base the throttle on, and it's a one-time deal, so we went with the EMD. So sorry about that. The Alco users are, out of luck, I guess. Alco's got those real long throttle handles too, some of them, and that'd be tough. The EMD is predominantly the diesel that a lot of diesel modelers have, so that's what we went with.
Scott, what was the name of the company that you went to, the electronics company that helped you develop the prototype?
Iowa Scaled Engineering, and you can get to their website at iascaled.com, and it's two partners, Michael Peterson and Nathan Holmes. Good guys, great customer service. They were the ones, the three of us developed it. They were the ones that really got this thing to fruition, because Michael and Nathan are both electrical engineers. They're the smart ones. I'm a designer by trade, so I'm in the creative field. So I couldn't design a circuit board if my life depended on it, so those guys are the ones who did all the electronic design and all the programming for the throttle, and they actually do all the assembly and the customer service, and they do a great job. They're great guys. And yeah, so and our customer service, our warranty is, if anything happens to your throttle, we'll take care of you, end of story. That's the warranty.
Scott, their website is iascaled, SCALED.com.
It's actually in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, it's IA, like abbreviating Iowa, scaled with an ED. I mean, scale with an ED on the end.com.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody have any more questions for Scott?
And again, I'm sorry about the convoluted presentation. I wish I had a better setup, but I know when somebody's moving a camera around and it's jiggling everywhere, it's a little disconcerting. So
it seemed to work pretty good. It was difficult hearing the sounds of the locomotive, but I really am impressed with the level of detail in your layout, I must say. I know that's not what you're selling, but
oh yeah, I could give you, if you want, I can give you, I can show you my signature scene if you guys are interested, because since we are
what kind of track are you using there?
I hand laid all my track.
Okay, because I saw the
So-
ties look pretty individualized.
Yeah, I'm a prototype modeler, and I'm modeling a short branch line of the Iowa Interstate Railroad that runs 12 miles from Rock Island, Illinois to Milan, Illinois, which is just south of Rock Island. So if you guys know the Quad Cities, that's the locale. And they have a small branch line there, runs 12 miles. And for 10 years, the year I'm modeling is 2003. And for 10 years, that branch was serviced almost exclusively by the 250, the little SW1200 that I had running there. Although I will have an occasional appearance with some Jeep 10s, because they also ran Jeep 10s during that area, and I love Jeep 10s. So, but the branch is very interesting because even though it's only a 12-mile branch, it serviced a huge variety of industries, everything from chemical to steel to scrap to food to lumber. So it's like the quintessential branch line for somebody who wants every car type imaginable. So yeah, I'll just show you my signature scene here. I'm going to flip this, which is the branch line had circa 1912 lattice truss, steel lattice truss bridges that span the Rock River. So here's my model of the Rock River. And then here are my models of the lattice truss. And so it's such a unique bridge design that I had to model it. And I think it turned out pretty well, tried to get them.
I think that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And so I had a lot of fun building the river scene here. This is really the first layout I've ever built. But again, I've got an art and design background, so I can, I wanted to model the transition between, the trees that overhung the river, really made the river look green. But then when you looked off into the distance, it would transition to the blue of the sky. So I don't know if you can see this. When you get down low, the transition is nice.
Yeah.
And then I 3D printed my my bridge abutments, and then I put a scratch coat of spackling compound on them, and then sanded it down and chipped it and weathered them, and that worked really well. Then over here I've got the quintessential, the ever-present pigeons with pooping everywhere, little runoff, but I wanted just to try and represent the scene pretty well. I also have ambient sound. You probably can't hear this, but there's a spill dam that's just upriver from these bridges. So you constantly hear the rush of the water and the birds. So I installed a little switch here on the fascia. So when you switch that on, you can hear I don't know if you can hear the birds in this here. But it adds a nice flavor to the scene. I'll turn it off here. And so that's the scene. Are you still there? Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
Thanks. You guys might also be interested to know, I have I love cloudy, windswept days. So what I did was my backdrop, I have another artist friend who actually drew it in Photoshop for me, or painted it in Photoshop, because I wanted cumulus clouds along with real high clouds, like cirrus clouds way in the back. And so the backdrop is really interesting. And then these LED lights, I've got 12 of these 2x2 panels that I have mixed, 7 lights on one circuit and 5 on another. And the Iowa Scaled boys built me an Arduino that makes these that varies these. So it gives you the impression that that the shadows are moving. So when I come up here and I switch it over, it will, the light will come up and down like as if the clouds were moving across the sky. I hope that makes sense, but if you were here, and I don't know if you can see that changing, but the light's actually changing as we're standing here randomly. You know, the intensity goes up and down. Do you see that?
I don't.
Okay. Well, it's a subtle thing, but you can
I can
kind
see
of,
the changes there. It's really, really something.
yeah, if you were here, the effect is quite stunning because it makes you feel like the clouds are actually moving. So, you know,
It
again,
is very subtle, but it can be seen.
yeah, and
Very,
the
very nice.
camera doesn't do a good job. And then I also have some other things that you guys might be interested in. I was inspired by a guy named Trevor Marshall. Some of you might know him, but most of the switch stands on the Mylon branch were your typical Target ones like this. And so I actually purchased and painted G-scale switch stands, and so they operate. So like I can move these, and then, you know, then it throws the points. So it's a nice little feature. The operators can actually move the switch stands. So, and finally, I'm going to have night ops eventually on the layout. So when we, you know, because they ran a lot of trains at night on the Mylon branch. So I've got a little LED here. Let's see if I can, the batteries might be out on it right now. Let me see here. Typically, it's not working. I must have ran out of battery juice, but I've got LEDs up here that are blue. And so when I turn this off, the effect is amazing because it looks like night, but you can still see and operate just fine. So I'll see if that light will transition at all for you guys again. Sometimes it's very dramatic, and most of the time it's really subtle. Sometimes it's real dramatic, but anyway, that's a little tour. So
It's a magnificent modeling. You ought to really be proud of that, Scott.
oh, well, thanks. I appreciate you guys showing interest.
Yeah, it's very nice.
In fact, while we're here, I could show you some other. I don't know how much time do I have, Jim?
Go ahead.
Okay. I just recently, let me flip this back over, purchased, there's a company out of England called Model U. Is anybody familiar with that?
Yep.
They make these incredible 3D figures, and they create these figures by they actually take a camera and they use actual people where they photograph them 360, and then they make these figures for modelers. And these things are absolutely amazing. So I bought some of these to use for signature scenes. I mean, look at this guy. I mean, he's got a radio in his hand. And anyway, so that's a neat little thing. Thought you guys might like to see that.
Absolutely.
This one with his leg up, he's going to end up as an engineer. See how he's got one arm he's going to have on the window in one of my Jeep 10s. And then I'm going to have his leg up so you'll be able to look through see that guy. So yeah, this gives you an overall shot of the layout room. Lots of work to do on the scenery, but we'll get there eventually. So anyway, that's all for me.
Anybody have any questions for Scott? Well, Scott, I really do appreciate you coming back and showing us the throttle in actual operation. Thank you so very much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome, Jim.